And at the turn of the year, the sons of Yaakov journeyed from Shechem, and they came to Hebron to their Abba Yitzchak. And they dwelt there, but their flocks and herds they fed daily in Shechem. For there was in those Yamim Tob and rich pasture there. And Jacob and his sons and all their household dwelt in the valley of Hebron. And it came to be in those Yamim that in that year, being the 106th year of the life of Jacob, in the 10th year of Jacob's coming from Paddan Aram, that Leah, the wife of Jacob, died. She was 51 years old when she died in Hebron. And Jacob and his sons buried her in the cave of the field of Machpelah, which is in Hebron, which Abram had bought from the children of Heth for the possession of a burial place. And the sons of Jacob dwelt with their Abba in the valley of Hebron, and all the inhabitants of the land knew their strength, and the report of them went throughout the land. And Yoseph, son of Jacob, and his brother Benjamin, the sons of Rachel and the wife of Jacob, were still young in those Yamim, and did not go out with their brothers during their battles in all the cities of the Amorites. And when Yoseph saw the strength of his brothers and their might, he praised them and exalted them. But he ranked himself greater than them, and exalted himself above them. And Jacob his Abba also ahabed him more than any of his sons, for he was the son of his old age. And through his ahab toward him, he made him a long robe. And when Yoseph saw that his Abba ahabed him more than his brothers, he continued to exalt himself above his brothers, and he brought evil reports to his Abba concerning them. And the sons of Jacob, seeing the whole of Joseph's conduct toward them, and their Abba ahabed him more than any of them, they hated him and could not speak peaceably to him all the Yamim. And Yoseph was 17 years old, and he was still extolling himself above his brothers, and thought of raising himself above them. At that time he dreamed a dream, and he came to his brothers and told them his dream. And he said to them, I dreamed a dream, and see, we were all binding sheaves in the field, and my sheaf rose up and placed itself on the ground, and your sheaf surrounded it and bowed down to it. And his brothers answered him and said to him, What does this dream mean that you dreamed? Do you think in your led to reign or rule over us? And he even came and told this matter to his Abba Jacob. And Jacob kissed Yoseph when he heard these words from his mouth, and Jacob Baruch Yoseph. And when the sons of Jacob saw that their Abba had Baruch Yoseph, and had kissed him, and that he ahabed him exceedingly, they became jealous of him and hated him all the more. And after this Yoseph dreamed another dream, and related the dream to his Abba in the presence of his brothers. And Yoseph said to his Abba and brothers, Look, I have again dreamed a dream, and see, the sun and the moon and the 11 Kokabim bowed down to me. And his Abba heard the words of Yoseph in his dream, and seeing that his brothers hated Yoseph because of this matter, Jacob therefore rebuked Yoseph before his brothers because of this matter, saying, What does this dream mean, which you have dreamed, and this magnifying of yourself before your brothers who are older than you? Do you think in your leb that I and your Amma and your 11 brothers will come and bow down to you, that you speak these words? And his brothers were jealous of him because of his words and dreams, and they continued to hate him. But Jacob kept the dreams in his leb. And the sons of Jacob went one yom to feed their Abba's flock in Shechem, for they were still herdsmen in those yomim. And while the sons of Jacob were feeding in Shechem, that yom they delayed, and the time of gathering in the cattle had passed, and they had not arrived. And Jacob saw that his sons were delayed in Shechem. And Jacob said within himself, Maybe the people of Shechem have risen up to fight against them. Therefore they have delayed coming this yom. And Jacob called Yoseph his son and commanded him, saying, Look, your brothers are feeding in Shechem this yom, and see, they have not yet come back. Go now therefore and see where they are, and bring me word back concerning the welfare of your brothers and the welfare of the flock. And Jacob sent his son Yoseph to the valley of Hebron. And Yoseph came to his brothers to Shechem, and could not find them. He came for his brothers to Shechem, and could not find them. And Yoseph went about the field which was near Shechem to see where his brothers had turned, and he lost his way in the wilderness and did not know which way he should go. And a messenger of YHWH found him wandering in the way toward the field. And Yoseph said to the messenger of YHWH, I seek my brothers. Have you not heard where they are feeding? And the messenger of YHWH said to Yoseph, I saw your brothers feeding here, and I heard them say they would go to feed in Dothan. And Yoseph listened to the voice of the messenger of YHWH, and he went to his brothers in Dothan, and found them in Dothan feeding their flock. And Yoseph advanced to his brothers, but before he could come near to them, they had resolved to slay him. And Shimeon said to his brothers, Look, the man of dreams is coming to us this yom, and now therefore come and let us kill him and throw him into one of these pits that are in the wilderness. And when his Abba shall seek for him from us, we will say, An evil beast has devoured him. And Reuben heard the words of his brothers concerning Yoseph, and he said to them, You should not do this matter, for how can we look upon our Abba Jacob? Throw him into this pit to die there, but do not stretch out a hand on him to spill his blood. And Reuben said this in order to deliver him from his hand to bring him back to his Abba. And when Yoseph came to his brothers, he sat before them, and they rose up upon him, and seized him, and struck him to the earth, and stripped off the long robe which he had on. And they took him and cast him into a pit. And in the pit there was no water, but serpents and scorpions, and Yoseph was afraid of the serpents and scorpions that were in the pit. And Yoseph cried out with a loud voice, and YHWH hid the serpents and scorpions in the sides of the pit, and they did no harm to Yoseph. And Yoseph called out from the pit to his brothers and said to them, What have I done to you, and in what have I sinned? Why do you not fear YHWH concerning me? Am I not of your flesh and bones? And is not Jacob our Abba, your Abba, my Abba? Why do you do this matter to me this yom? And how will you be able to look upon our Abba Jacob? And he continued to cry out and call to his brothers from the pit. And he said, O Yehuda, O Shimshon, O Lewi, my brothers, lift me up from this place of darkness in which you have put me, and come this yom to have compassion on me, you children of Yahweh, and sons of Jacob, my Abba. And if I have sinned towards you, are you not the sons of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Jacob? If they saw an orphan, they had compassion on him, and one that was hungry, they gave him bread to eat, and one that was thirsty, they would give him water to drink, or one that was naked, they covered him with garments. And how then will you withhold your pity from your own brother? For I am your flesh and bones, and if I have sinned towards you, indeed will you do this because of my Abba? And Yoseph spoke these words from the pit, but his brothers would not listen to him, nor did they incline their ears to the words of Yoseph. And Yoseph was crying and weeping in the pit. And Yoseph said, Oh, that my Abba knew this yom, the deed which my brothers have done to me, and the words which they have spoken to me this yom. And all his brothers heard his cries and weeping in the pit. And his brothers went and removed themselves from the pit, so that they might not hear the cries of Yoseph and his weeping in the pit. And they went, this is chapter 42. And they went and sat on the opposite side, about a distance of a bow shot. And they sat there to eat bread. And while they were eating, they consulted together what was to be done with him, whether to slay him or to bring him back to his Abba. They were consulting when they lifted their eyes and looked, and see, there was a great company of Ishmaelites coming at a distance by the way of Gilead, going down to Mitsrayim. And Yehuda said to them, What gain will it be to us if we slay our brother? Maybe Yahweh will require him from us. This, then, is the counsel proposed concerning him, which you shall do to him. See this company of Ishmaelites going down to Mitsrayim? Now, therefore, come, let us dispose of him to them, and let our hands not be upon him. And they will lead him along with them, and they will be lost among the people. And he will be lost among the people of the land, but we will not put him to death with our own hands. And the proposal pleased the brothers, and they did according to the word of Yehuda. And while they were speaking about this matter, and before the company of Ishmaelites had come upon them, 7 trading men of Midian passed by them. And as they passed, they were thirsty, and they lifted up their eyes and saw the pit in which Yoseph was confined. And they looked, and see, every species of bird was upon it. And these Midianites ran to the pit to drink water, for they thought that it contained water. And on coming before the pit, they heard the voice of Yoseph crying and weeping in the pit. And they looked down into the pit, and they looked, and see, there was a youth, handsome in form and appearance. And they called to him and said, Who are you? And who brought you here? And who has placed you in this pit, in the wilderness? And they all assisted to raise Yoseph up, and they drew him out, and brought him up from the pit, and took him, and went away on their journey, and passed by his brothers. And they said to them, Why do you do this, to take our servant from us to go away? Indeed, we placed this youth in the pit because he rebelled against us. And you come and bring him up and lead him away. Now then, give us back our servant. And the Midianites answered and said to the sons of Jacob, Is this your servant, or does this man attend you? Maybe you are all his servants, for he is more handsome in form and appearance than any of you. And why do you all speak falsely to us? Now therefore we will not listen to your words, nor attend to you, for we found the youth in the pit in the wilderness, and we took him. We will therefore go on. And all the sons of Jacob approached them, and stood up to them, and said to them, Give us back our servant, and why should you all die with the edge of the sword? And the Midianites cried out against them, and they drew their swords, and approached to fight against the sons of Jacob. And seized Shimeon, rose up from his place against them, and leaped on the ground, and drew his sword, and approached the Midianites. And he gave a terrible shout before them, so that his shouting was heard at a distance, and the earth shook at Shimeon's shouting. And the Midianites were afraid because Shimeon and the noise of his shouting, and they fell upon their faces and were exceedingly alarmed. And Shimeon said to them, Truly I am Shimeon, son of Jacob the Abri, who have only with my brother destroyed the city of Shechem and the cities of the Amorites. So shall Yahweh also do that to me, if all your brothers and the people of Midian, and also the sovereigns of Canaan, were to come up with you. They could not fight against me. Now therefore give us back the youth whom you have taken, lest I give your flesh to the birds of the sky and the beasts of the earth. And the Midianites were more afraid of Shimeon, and they approached the sons of Jacob with dread and fear, and with humble words, saying, Indeed, you have said that the young man is your servant, and that he rebelled against you, and therefore you placed him in the pit. What then will you do with a servant who rebels against his master? Now therefore sell him to us, and we will give you all that you require for him. And Yahweh was pleased to do this, in order that the sons of Jacob should not slay their brother. And the Midianites, seeing that Yoseph was handsome in form and appearance, desired him in their hearts, and were urged to purchase him from his brothers. And the sons of Jacob listened to the Midianites, and they sold their brother Yoseph to them for 20 pieces of silver. But Reuben, their brother, was not with them. And the Midianites took Yoseph and continued their journey to Gilead. They were going along the way, but the Midianites repented of what they had done in having purchased the young man. And one said to the other, What is this matter that we have done in taking this youth from the Ibrim, who is handsome in form and appearance? Maybe this youth is stolen from the land of Ibrim, and why then have we done this matter? And if he should be sought for and found in our hands, we shall die through him. Now indeed strong and mighty men have sold him to us, the strength of one of whom you saw this young. Maybe they stole him from his land in their might and with their powerful arm, and have therefore sold him to us for the small value which we gave of him. And while they were so speaking together, they looked, and see, the company of Ishmaelites, which was coming at first, and which the sons of Jacob saw, was advancing towards the Midianites. And the Midianites said to each other, Come, and let us sell this youth to the company of Ishmaelites who are coming towards us. And we will take him for the little that we gave for him, and we will be delivered from this evil. And they did so, and they reached the Ishmaelites, and the Midianites sold Yoseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver, which they had given for him to his brothers. The Midianites went on their way to Gilead, and the Ishmaelites took Yoseph, and they let him ride upon one of the camels, and they were leading him to Mitsrayim. And Yoseph heard that the Ishmaelites were proceeding to Mitsrayim, and Yoseph lamented and wept at this matter, that he was to be so far removed from the land of Canaan from his Abba. And he wept bitterly while he was riding upon the camel. And one of their men observed him and made him go down from the camel and walk on foot. Nevertheless, Yoseph continued to cry and weep, and he said, "Oh, my Abba, my Abba." And one of the Ishmaelites rose up and struck Yoseph on the cheek, but he continued to weep. And Yoseph was tired on the way, and he was unable to continue because of the bitterness of his being. And they all struck him and afflicted him on the way, and they frightened him in order that he might stop weeping. And Yoseph saw and Yahweh saw the desire of Yoseph and his trouble, and Yahweh brought down upon those men darkness and confusion, and the hand of every one that struck him became withered. And they said to each other, "What is this matter that YHWH has done to us on the way?" And they did not know that this befell them because of Yoseph. And the men continued on the way, and they passed along the way to Ephrath, where Rachel was buried. And Yoseph reached his mother's grave, and Yoseph hastened and ran to his mother's grave, and fell upon the grave and wept. And Yoseph cried aloud upon his mother's grave, and he said, "Oh, my Amma, my Amma, and you who brought me forth, awake now, rise and see your son, how he has been sold for a slave, and no one to pity him. Oh, arise and see your son, weep with me because of my troubles, and see my Leb for my brothers. Arise, my Amma, arise, awake from your sleep for me, and direct your battles against my brothers. Oh, how have they stripped me of my robe, and already sold me twice for a slave, and separated me from my Abba, and there is no one to pity me. Arise and lay your cause against them before YHWH, and see whom YHWH will justify in the judgment, and whom he will condemn. Arise, O my Amma, arise, awake from your sleep, and see my Abba, how his being is with me this yom, and comfort him and ease his Leb." And Yoseph continued to speak these words, and Yoseph cried aloud and wept bitterly upon his Amma's grave. And he ceased speaking from bitterness of Leb. He became still as a stone upon the grave. And Yoseph heard a voice speaking to him from beneath the ground, which answered him with bitterness of Leb, and with a voice of weeping and praying in these words, my son, Yoseph, I have heard the voice of your weeping and the voice of your lamentation. I have seen your tears, and I know your troubles. My son, it grieves me for your sake, and abundant grief is added to my grief. Now, therefore, my son, Yoseph, my son, trust in YHWH, and wait for him, and do not fear, for YHWH is with you. He will deliver you from all your trouble. Arise, my son, go down to Mitsrayim with your masters, and do not fear, for YHWH is with you, my son. And she continued to speak similar words to Yoseph, and she was still. And Yoseph heard this, and he wondered greatly at this, but he continued to weep. And after this, one of the Ishmaelites observed him crying and weeping on the grave, and his wrath was kindled against him, and he drove him from there, and he struck him and cursed him. And Yoseph said to the men, "May I find favor in your sight, to take me back to my Abba's house? He will give you an abundance of riches." And they answered him, saying, "Are you not a slave, and where is your Abba? And if you had an Abba, you would not already twice have been sold for a slave for so little of value." And their wrath was still roused against him, and they continued to strike him and to chastise him, and Yoseph wept bitterly. And Yahweh saw Joseph's affliction, and Yahweh again smote these men and chastised them, and Yahweh caused darkness to envelope them upon the earth. And the lightning flashed, and the thunder roared, and the earth shook at the sound of the thunder of the mighty wind. And the men were afraid and did not know where they should go. And the beasts and camels stood still, and they led them, but they would not go. They struck him, and they crouched upon the ground. And the men said to each other, "What is this that Yahweh has done to us, or Allah has done to us? What are our transgressions, and what are our sins, that this matter has befallen us?" And one of them answered and said to them, "Maybe because of the sin of afflicting this slave has this matter befallen us, Hayam. Now therefore implore him strongly to forgive us, and then we shall know for whose sake this evil befalls us. And if Allah shall have compassion over us, then we shall know that all this came upon us because of the sin of afflicting this slave." And the men did so, and they begged Yoseph and pressed him to forgive them. And they said, "We have sinned to Yahweh and to you. Now therefore promise to request of your Allah that he shall put away his death from among us, for we have sinned against him." And Yoseph did according to their words, and Yahweh listened to Yoseph, and Yahweh put away the plague which he had inflicted upon these men because of Yoseph. And the beast rose up from the ground, and they led them, and they went on. And the raging storm abated, and the earth became quiet, and the men continued on their journey to go down to Mitsrayim. And the men knew that this evil had befallen them because of Yoseph. And they said to each other, "Look, we know that this was because of his affliction that this evil befell us. Now, therefore, we shall bring his death upon our beings. Let us hold counsel what we are to do with the slave." And one answered and said, "Indeed, he told us to bring him back to his Abba. Now, therefore, come, let us take him back, and we will go to the place where he tells us, and take from his clan the price that we gave for him, and we will then go away." And one answered again and said, "Look, this counsel is very tow, but we cannot do so, for the way is very far from us, and we cannot go out of our way." And one more answered and said to them, "This is the counsel to be taken. We will not swerve from it. See, we are this yom going to Mitsrayim, and when we have come to Mitsrayim, we will sell him there at a high price, and we will be delivered from his evil." And this word pleased the men, and they did so, and they continued their journey to Mitsrayim with Yoseph.